Yo, this is Dova Blackhat Gaming. I do RPG games like Elder Scrolls and Fallout and many more. Subscribe to see more and enjoy the video.
Yes? What did you need?
Hoping it wouldn't smell this bad.
Greetings, fellow traveler. I apologize for my singing. I didn't realize I had an audience. I sometimes fashion myself a bard or a sword singer of legend. It's more ominous than beautiful, but I suppose its melody won't lack for suitors. Maybe not now, but in time.
I just stepped in something slimy.
Hardly. In my time with the wolves, I did a lot of small favors. Pest control, muscle jobs, or hunting down petty thieves. As someone who spent half her life in the slums and the other half tracking and hunting forest game, this work came easy. Unfortunately, raiding caves, Draugr crypts, ghost ships and spider dens are another matter entirely. True, but there is a certain type of skill set you need to survive as an adventurer. You need to know which mushrooms are food and which ones are poison. You have to learn how to sleep on a bed of rock and with one eye open. And, as a hunter, you have to get used to the idea of being prey. The worst part is, you might spend a week in some crypt and have no treasure to show for it. So you also have to learn to handle disappointment. Yet it's not the size of a cave that worries me, but what lives inside it. Particularly the caves marked by the Fallen. The farmer marked the entrance to their caves with a sculpture of painted bones. I'm repulsed by it, but I don't think I could venture into a cave if I wasn't sure those things weren't looming beneath. The markings help. I grew up in a poor village outside of Whiterun. It was very small but full of children and as such full of life. They said when we played in the yard, the peals of laughter rang all the way to Dragon's Reach. Yet, when I think about that village, I can never hear it. I listen for it, train my ears toward the darkness, but what comes out isn't laughter. There were screams that night. So many screams. The Falmer took my mother, they took my father. They tried to take me. Before she took me in, my mother used to light a single sconce by my bed to ward off the dark. I remember the way the light wrapped around its face, how it stood there, tracing its mouth with its tongue. I'm sorry. No more talk about the Falmer. They're foul creatures, and if I never see another, it will be too soon. Nothing. Just the usual trinkets surrounded by corpses, blood and bones. The bandit corpse over there is still fresh. Looks like I arrived here before the wolves could desecrate it.
Gosh, it's dark.
The face on that one looked familiar. I almost thought it was someone I knew. A friend's, cousin's, uncle or something. What does that make us? Strangers. But even the death of a stranger seems like something worth mourning. You're welcome to. It's not something you want to make a habit out of doing, though. I mean, if I could, I would give them all proper burials. But there isn't enough time in this lifetime and the next. Present is probably too strong of a word. My time with the wolves was disappointing, but only because I had a false impression of who they were. As a child, I thought they could protect me. As a woman, I thought they would groom me. It was naive to think so. Wolves may run in packs, but there's a hierarchy, and a competitive one. Whatever skill or strength I gained, I earned on my own. No, I imagine it isn't. Few have ever heard it, and even fewer understand what it's about. Some say it's a quiet song of glory, while others will tell you it tells the loudest of tragedies. You see, to be a companion, to be part of the circle, one must give up a piece of their humanity. It was not something I was willing to give. So I left my shield brothers and sisters and set out on my own. I figured I needed time to myself, and I'd grown weary of saying goodbye. Not at all. The choice was easy. I've always been suspicious of easy power. The only strength that you can truly rely on is the kind that's earned. No. And it has nothing to do with the circle. That's why I left, but there's a different reason why I won't return. When I was a child, I thought of nothing else but joining the fabled companions.
Yes?
Not out
What
of
did you
some
need?
desire to be a hero, but because I believed there was no safer place to live than inside the great meat hall.
Rocks and valleys, crevices and
remember
hiding
kneeling on the
places.
steps,
This is the kind of
drenched in
place
wet
where
mud,
hermits and
the clouds
fanatics dwell.
practically screaming the
You
rain.
fit right in.
It must have looked so
I'm
pitiful,
kidding.
begging Skjord to take me in. Yet it wasn't pity he gave me, but scorn. Who do you think we are, girl? He said. Your Vasco is not an orphanage. And he was right. All my life I'd sought the protection of others, when I should have been learning to protect myself. You have it backwards. Nobody got in my way, I got in theirs. I once travelled with a companion. You might even call him a friend. For years I would rely on him for food, for warmth, and for someone to talk to. But what if the day came when I couldn't summon his aid? And then what would become of me? No, that wasn't going to be my fate. The wolves will recruit any fighter who is strong and virtuous, for there are few in this world who are both. My chance came about 7 summers ago, when the city held a tournament to celebrate the birth of the Jarl's son. I was a girl not even flowered, and the crowd behind me laughed and jeered when I requested to enter my name on the archers list. But all went silent when Jarl and Greymane vouched for me, and paid for my entrance with a dagger from the Skyforge. From his view atop the Skyforge, he'd seen me grow from a child who could barely knock an arrow to one who could bullseye a flea. He watched me train outside Javaska day and night, in the chills of winter and the rains of spring, so that I could one day earn my way inside. And on that day, there was not an archer in Whiterun whose aim was more true. Not Aethys or Irila, not even Ayla the Huntress would best me. Yes, and I imagine he'd accidentally hit your foot. I'm sorry to hear that, but I see no reason to. They say Codlack Whitemane was a good man. It was something I always heard secondhand. The Codlack I knew was far too consumed with his own demons to pay attention to the likes of me. He will be mourned, and rightly so, by those who loved him. But I don't count myself among them.
Yes? What did you need?
Stay close. Close quarters it is then.
Wow, that was a frightening experience. The Nords should really consider burning their dead. Although granted it would make opening urns a lot more harrowing. Oh, I'm fine. Don't worry, that's not blood on my face, it's makeup. No, I'm sorry, war paint. Doesn't help much in actual war though, but you did great. That's why you get first shot at rubbing these graves. You must not be a very good adventurer then, but you'd make an excellent priest. They just steal from the living. The name's Ramarin, professional adventurer, bladebinder, and grave robber. It's right there in the word. I summon and bind blades and weapons from oblivion. I was always good with the sword and bow and always too lazy to carry them. Learning how to conjure the weapons I need solved that dilemma. That's always been my strategy for brawls. The problem is, I never have enough companions to make it worthwhile.
There once was a hero named Lucian Flavius whose
No,
singing,
I can't
writing,
compare to
and
them.
looks were just
Unless by
marvelous.
illusion you mean hiding a dagger in my sleeve. Not unless by alteration you mean covering my nose around beggars, or by destruction you mean what time does to love. I consider myself more of a blacksmith. Oblivion is my forge and conjuration my hammer. Well, for starters, traveling light makes it easy to flee. Not that I would advocate running from a fight. No, best to back away slowly until your friends intervene. Well, there's the problem. I have skill, not strength. I have speed, but no stamina. I mean, look at me. I'm rather delicate. I'm surprised I can lift anything at all. Ever seen an elf juggle 3 axes while conjuring a 4th? Tie a cherry stem into a knot with their tongue? Now that's magic. Now, if you mean spells and things, that I'm afraid requires more than being born with your ears pointed skyward. That requires, studying. Not quite. These are actually a cheap imitation, woven and enchanted to look like their more esteemed counterpart. The point is to convince naive patrons the enchantments were performed by a master. They are not. Well, consider the fact that bandits are twice as naive as the average customer looks. Thus, one ruse leads to another. Not that these robes are only good for conjuring a story. The enchantment is far from spectacular, but on occasion it does help me conserve magicka. That makes it sound so sinister, like some place you buy fur coats made from Khajiit pelts. Nothing was hurt in the sewing of this robe. Well, maybe the college's reputation. Well, I know a guy, a real master of mimicry. Robes from Winterhold, fake scimitars from Hammerfell, there is nothing this craftsman can't replicate. Well, except a personality. Well, I was going to go for something more subtle, like a wyvern mounting a cliff racer, but I thought that people might misinterpret the analogy. And besides, there wasn't enough room on my groin to begin with, so I decided to paint my face instead. A dash under the eyes helps with the glare. So does a hood. Well, in some parts of Tamriel, war paint is seen as a tribal mark for warriors. In others, it can be a family crest, an artistic splash, or just too much makeup. Of course, excessive makeup is traditionally a sign you will service wealthy nobles for gold. And before you ask, my price is 100 septims and no kissing on the mouth. Okay, maybe once or twice, but no tongue. Males, females, beasts, goats, the list goes on and on, although I confess I don't like billies. You're not a billy, are you? Well, if you are, I'd still do it, but it's going to cost extra. Oh, I'm serious about a lot of things. In fact, I'm absolutely dedicated to not taking life seriously. I do. They're tall, punctual, and have good posture. Oh, I know, but I learned that discussing politics and religion is an exercise in futility. I'll just evade the question, thank you, and focus on more agreeable questions, like the weather, the temperature, and the local food. Just try and disagree with me on the weather. See? You can't. So, it's Ramaran's turn to make a decision. Bold move on your part, seeing as I'm half a half-wit. Just remember to point the finger elsewhere when things go wrong. Otherwise, I'm likely to pull it and make some sort of crude noise. Well, now that you mention it, I was in Riverwood listening to this half-wit tell me about the story behind the Sleeping Giant Inn. Naturally, as he was twice as smart as I am, I was intrigued. Supposedly there's an actual sleeping giant living somewhere in Falkreath. As in, that's all he does. Sleep. Part of a Hagraven spell, supposedly. It only wakes when somebody tries to steal the witch's treasure. Now, the person I spoke with said he already slew the giant, but later on I realized he was making the whole thing up. The slaying part. The giant and the treasure may very well exist. I am glad you asked. It means we think on the same level, as that is precisely what I asked our half-wit friend. Supposedly, the sleep spell has a weakness, which allows the Hagraven to access her treasure. According to him, all we need to do is play it a lullaby and we'll be able to rock the angry giant back to sleep. Well, yes, but to be honest, I would rather not stake my life on the words of this half-wit, regardless of how smart he seems standing next to me. I was thinking we should also recruit a strong warrior, in the event the giant refuses to take its nap. I have some friends in Morthal who told me there's some legendary hero who lives in the marsh and rides a chorus. If we can recruit him and the bard, I'd feel a lot more comfortable about our chances. Yes? Let's go. Did I ever tell you what my name means in the Old Mary? That's because I have no idea. You lead and I'll do whatever you say.
Barkeep, I'd like a drink.
Of course.
Thanks.
Ah, so you seek the axe of the one they call Giant Bane. My legend is as vast as the Sea of Ghosts, and yet I could fill it to the brim with the bones of the giants I have slain. I don't know. Probably because they ran in fear of my axe when I killed their furry cows and slaughtered their young. From that day on, they have painted the stones with my name. Fear the one called Jonas, for he is the giant's bane.
That's enough, Jonas. Stop confusing the other patrons with your lies.
They are not lies, wench. I am the giant's bane.
Just 'cause you were born with that stupid name, don't make it so. Sometimes I wonder if you didn't make up that too.
Wait, I heard there was a legendary knight living in this town.
Sorry, handsome, but it ain't Jonas. This poor ass drinker couldn't slay a flea. You want that Argonian, the one that lives up north in the swamp.
I really like the looks of this Jonas fellow, but the wench doesn't seem too impressed, and I trust my wenches. I guess it's off to the marsh then. Yes? I'm right behind you.
What you want, stranger? I don't have time for chit-chat. And I am honored to meet one so thick as to think this pond is a marsh. Ha! Then let me make sure you carve it correctly. I apologize for giving you such a hard time, but you adventurers make such easy targets. Greetings, brave traveler. My clan once knew me as Anam La. The fighters I stand beside, however, call me the Swamp Knight. Well, it's a short story. I carry a sword. I'm from the swamp of Black Marsh. Do you need me to continue, or can you piece it together from here? You're a clever one. Saw right through my glib response. All right, I'll tell you. But it's a long story. So you might want to sit down for this one. I was hatched in a small tribal village, lost in the swamps between Thorn and Hellstrom. In other words, in the middle of nowhere. As the hatchling of a small and pitiful clan, I couldn't afford to travel to the city and train under the guidance of the tribal guard. Do you mean to tell me the Nords have gained horse and cart technology? By the gods, they're practically dwarves! If only we Argonians had thought the same. We'd have no use for those pesky boats. It's all right, young traveler. I used to think people in Skyrim rode giant sleds pulled by wolves. There were visitors. In fact, every few years, a recruiter from the city would come to the village and conscript those in the clan who showed promise. Only a handful of hatchlings were chosen. All of them were males. Males I bested in combat 100 times over. I figured the only way I'd be a soldier was to train on my own. So, one night, I went out into the deepest swamps with nothing but a hist branch. I committed myself to killing a feather serpent. On the second night, I thought I'd vanquish 3. By the first hour, my only goal was to survive. Somehow, I managed. I labored through the bog and hid inside a hollowed-out tree. I waited and watched for predators. And as I watched, I learned. I saw how the serpent camouflaged itself in the foliage, how the Leviathan waded effortlessly through the swamp, simply by refusing all effort. I saw how on bright days the lizard used the Hackwing's own shadow to scuttle around unseen, and how on dark days all creatures clung to the mist. By the time I was grown, I could slay 5 feathered serpents with a single slash and do it with my eyes closed. That's an old story. Back when the Hrothgar monks had milk in their beards from sucking their mother's teats. Okay, maybe not that old, but old. I was traveling in Black Marsh with a company of fighters. We fashioned ourselves the Honorable 8. We were an elite band of fighters, hired to do jobs common sellswords weren't equipped for. At first, I thought the honorable part was a joke. Our company was made up of liars, drunkards, and lying drunkards. But they were all loyal. And they were all honorable. They were good beasts, mare and men. But they have beards, gray ones even. That makes them wise. Maybe if our company had more whiskers, we would never have made that horrible mistake. We were, and we did. Ha ha ha! You sure you two haven't been sniffing death bells? What could you possibly have to gain from slaying a giant, besides a cracked skull and a handful of toes? Traveler, I never cared much for treasure, but adventure and good company, that's another story. So why not? I'll lend you my blade if you'll lend me your ears.
Wait, so you're the Argonian who braves the marsh? I was expecting someone burlier.
Ha ha! Don't worry, Elf. I'm stronger than I look, and I tend to draw attention. This giant will definitely kill you last.
That's comforting to know. Alright, that's 1 down and 1 to go. Yes? Alright then.
So, do elders
Alright then.
outside of time? I wonder if it sees a nice warm bath in our future.
Great, but
Yes? What did you need?
I can hear you, you know.
I mean,
Back with more flattery, I see.
bigger than her entire head. All 3 of our heads put together.
I'm sure if this treasure was guarded by a pile of firewood, those muscles would come in real handy.
Okay, maybe he is a milk drinker, but what if he's not? All I'm saying is we just put him in front of a giant and see what happens.
Ha ha ha! Now that's something we'd both like to see.
So, is it true what they say that you ride an armored Chorus. Please tell me it's true.
Of course, riding a Chorus is just like riding a horse. All you need is a saddle and a strong resistance to poison. Now, some people will tell you you have to be crazy to ride one. Well, you don't have to be, but it certainly helps.
Wait, so I need a saddle and... Oh, you're being sarcastic. You know, I don't like it so much when other people do it to me.
So, what's the plan? True enough, the name came when I joined a company of fighters, many of whom were celebrated warriors from all over Tamriel. There were members who served as honor guards for tribal chieftains, and those who trained under guild masters and various regiments of the Empire. There were even retired assassins from the renowned Shadow Scales of legend, but none knew of who I was, or why I was recruited to join the company. The truth was, I was never supposed to be there. I had found the invitation on a courier while traveling west toward Gideon. Undaunted, I told them the story of how I trained to become a knight. I used that exact word. In truth, I'd only heard the word knight in passing. But when travelers from strange lands used the term, their words spoke with a tone heavy with reverence. That's how I wanted them to speak about me. Naturally, the company laughed uproariously at my expense. They dubbed me the Swamp Knight, and I've been that ever since. Oh, they did. But Dalum A assured them I was on the up and up. He was our leader and the one who assembled the crew. I never asked him why. Maybe he was just curious. Maybe he ascribed it to fate. Maybe he thought he could make a wife out of me. That poor fool never had a chance. Chasing this scroll makes me feel like a knight again. You have ancient evils, legendary weapons, and heroes to claim them. It's an exciting time to be alive, isn't it? Although I never expected the weapon to be a shout. I guess it's a Nord thing. Maybe if you're a dragon. Now, if this shout were called Lizard Rend, then I might have reason to worry. But all right, traveler. I'll do my best. If the Greybeards say it, it's one thing. But I trust you to know the difference between peace and indifference. The job was simple. Clear out a cave of necromancers that were terrorizing one of the clans that resided near the border. The clan said a hatchling had gone missing, and rumors were abound of corpses stolen for experiments, and live bodies turned into corpses. When we got there, the Shadow Scale Ula Wade scouted ahead as the rest of us waited near the entrance. We found bear traps and tripwires. The occupants were further in, he said. Black-robed mages, chanting. The whole thing stunk like a Balmor's wet diaper. traps or no, bandits usually post sentries in and outside the cave. The Nord, Arnwolf, though, he got tired of all the standing around. Black robes and ominous words. Good enough for him. Dalum A gave the nod. Couldn't chance it. Some poor hatchling could have been on a table, about to become some sick bastard's war puppet. Sadly, no. The child was on the table like Ula Wei said, but she was already dead. The people around her were mourners. Black robes. They were refugees from Cyrodiil, Altmer, Kadjit, and Argonian, driven from Leaween. To the clans, they might as well have been wraiths. I don't know who struck first. It didn't matter. We killed them all. Well, all except one. It was an Imperial boy, hiding in a small crevice in the rock. I didn't know who he was, or if he was even with the refugees. The boy was a mute. Part of me thought it would be better to slay him, but another part of me saw the hatchling in the swamp, just trying to survive till morning. The company disbanded. Honor brought us together, and dishonor drove us apart. Me and the healer, Elia, went north. The boy, he followed. We split up in Bravel. Don't know why he chose me. Seems to me he was better off with a Breton. But as I kept going north, he never left my side. I don't think Elia would have wanted him around either. Males grow squeamish at the mere talk of children, let alone the sight of one. I kept going north, figuring at some point the boy would stop following me. Gotta give it to the little runt. He had courage. Eventually, I realized I could have walked right into the sea of ghosts, and the little Histcarp would have dove right in. I was halfway through the marsh when I decided to head back to Morthal. I turned to the pesky urchin and told him, "All right, you win." Imagine my surprise when I found myself talking to a patch of death bells. Ha 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 ha! There was no one there. Some may ask why I'm a knight without armor. Others contend I wear the mourner's clothes to honor the brave warriors I slay. Those in my company will tell you I wear it to mourn the refugees who died that day, and all the innocents who die in the pangs of war. I will tell you that there's only one thing in this world I truly mourn. My sanity. Ha 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 ha. You lead, I'll follow.
That would probably be a bad idea. We want someone who can handle themselves in a fight. If I had a conscience, and I'm beginning to suspect I might, it would weigh heavily on it if I got some poor looters killed. If this bard were a warrior, well, then I wouldn't mind so much if their bodies ended up halfway up the ceiling. Hazards of the job and all that. I wonder if any of the companions know how to sing. We should stop by Jorvaska, find out before we go asking a bard if he can swing a mace. Alright then.
Dive off your mind.
Yes? What did you need?
You tried mercenary work? It might suit you. Sometimes I miss the soldier. My Sapphire doesn't like. He fed his entire family with the gold. I tracked it to a group. I don't know why I'm saying this, but if you find it out in your travels, I'd be grateful to you. If you find that sword, please bring it to me.
How's it going?
If you had a tail, I'm sure you'd find a way to wrap it around your hilt.
Good luck out there.
Hope everyone enjoyed the video. Like, comment, and subscribe. And hit the bell icon. See you all on the next video. Enjoy life. And stay
Luck.
Walk with the All-Maker.